All right, septic and on-site sewage system addendum. This form itself was on my to-do list last year, and as well as the private well addendum. And I couldn't do it all. There was just too many changes to the private well addendum, so we tabled the septic on-site sewage system addendum for 2020. And so I'd love to hear feedback from brokers that use this form, because I think it needs a lot of help. Well, not a lot, but it needs some more changes. We did make a small change on this section that you can see right now, section 6. It says, buyer's right to terminate transaction. Buyer shall have blank business days, 5 if not filled in. That used to say 3 business days. We're trying to get it consistent in these addenda to make sure, and sales contracts, to make sure that it is 5 business days. But that's so far the only change we made here. Oh, wait, no, line 36, I'm sorry, a little bit more on that same paragraph. That's why it's so much highlighted. It used to say all, but now it says any. Some items may not be available. This places the burden on the buyer to request additional reports. And line 37, we added including location of outlet pipes. So we just actually rewrote this clause to closely mirror other review period verbiage in other OREF documents. But that's all we've done on the septic on-site sewage addendum. And like I said, please, if you're using that and or you've got any suggestions today, feel free to let us know that. I should probably get a note, write it down. But I would love to hear that as we're working on this form in 2020. Any questions or comments with that said? Alrighty. Oh, the private well addendum. I'm going to pause and take a deep breath because stretch a little bit. The changes to the private well addendum, if you are familiar, have used this in the past, you will notice it's very different. I was on this task force. Everything okay?
Okay, we're losing you again.
Okay.
I was just thinking, because of how long it took for you to download TeamViewer and your phone was going on mute, it might be good for the people in the audience to put their phones into airplane mode so you have the best connection. We have a hardwired connection here, and everything seems to be okay on our end. So just to be sure that the presenting device and the device, whatever device you're using for the microphone, is connected to the internet. But if you have other devices that are connected to the same wireless network, I would ask that maybe just to make sure that you guys can hear us, to make sure that those devices are put into airplane mode just for a little bit. At least disconnect from the wireless network. And we could take just a second to make sure that everyone does that. But
hopefully that will help. I'll pause a second.
Okay, I think we're good here.
All right, okay. Thank you. And I'll try to make sure I'm staying close to the microphone. The private well addendum, like I said, it has been totally revamped. So you will see several changes. I was given this because I think the committee knew I was pretty passionate about it. Not me personally, but my transaction coordinator in my office was very passionate about this form because we quite honestly thought it was kind of redundant. They had sections that were repeated and they were disconnected and had some stuff that wasn't necessary. And so we cleaned it up. Again, this form is probably going to need some more changes. I want you to practice with the new changes and see if you see mistakes or things that you would think should be written differently. We would gladly take those suggestions. But first of all, on line 16, it says order well water sample collection. That section, I just want to make sure it's clear that everybody understands that within blank business days, 5 if not filled in, after buyer and seller have signed and accepted this agreement, seller shall at seller's cost order well water sample collection. by a registered sanitarian, certified water system operator, well driller, pump installer, or lab technician prior to any treatment, and testing ordered with a laboratory accredited according to Oregon Environmental Laboratory Accreditation, I can't say that word, program, standards for arsenic, nitrate, and total coliform bacteria. The reason I read that is because I'm going to refer that in a moment. And I want you to notice on line 17, it says lab technician prior to any treatment. That has been in there. That's not different. We pulled that literally out of the law. And so what they're saying is they will draw the water prior to any treatment if there is any. That's the law. So I'm going to refer back to that in a moment, and that'll explain why I'm saying that. But you'll see in additional slides in the future here, we'll see where we've moved some things around. We changed the contents of this section. We added to the seller testing duties and buyer testing duties sections. You'll see that in a moment. But line 16, like I said earlier, we've said, it used to say have the well water sampled to order well water sample collection. So within 5 business days, you're ordering it. It doesn't have to be sampled within those 5 business days. It has to be ordered, okay? And then on the next slide, you'll see on line 26, where it says see that website, the public health website, we put a little search section. We said search any URL, Oregon Health Authority well testing. And the reason I decided to add that was because, and again, the website, the public, links can be broken and stuff like that. So if somebody was to go to public.health.oregon.gov, or it was ever changed, I guess link was broken, you'd still struggle with the same issue. But if it was ever changed, we could always go to, and I tested this out, you could go to any URL. I went to Google and I just searched Oregon Health Authority well testing. And I pretended I was my mom who would struggle with something like this. I should have had my mom test it, but she's, not very tech savvy, and she could have found that website by searching the URL Oregon Health Authority well testing. And so I want it to be easier for just a lay person to be able to find the laws and what goes around that, and what their requirements are for well testing. So we added that search little line. Seller shall, on line 27, if available, we added if available there, provide buyer with the following information regarding the well located on or serving the property. So check all the boxes that you're asking for them to provide. I don't know what your standard practice is, but mine would be, this is kind of weird because you don't know what the seller has. So you're just asking and hoping. So I check them all and I say, any the seller has, please provide. And then again, like I talked about on the HOA form, if they don't have those, then make sure they are countering and saying, I don't have any of those. This is one of those sections when you're writing an offer and you're driving this form, you don't know what you don't know. So all you can do is ask. So the seller needs to respond and not just say, I'm not providing that and just ignore it, because they would have to counter and say none, seller has no documents, or seller cannot provide this. But also having the conversation with your clients that any inspection report, especially with wells, is only a snapshot in time. So if they're providing a test from 12 years ago, that is not going to be really accurate today necessarily. So they really should get their own well tests on it. But here's an opportunity. It's always been like this, but we just add the word if available, but still I think you should as a seller counter if they've asked for them. Next slide. The well information and additional test section was removed, with the contents of that section added to the seller testing duties and buyer testing duties sections. So like I said, it was bouncing around and disconnected. So we made sure anything to do with the buyer testing duties fell under the buyer testing duties, and we added the word duties, and then under seller testing duties, so it was consistent. And on line 33, we changed there as well, have the well water tested to order well water testing. And line 36 is a new item, additional arsenic, nitrates, and total coliform bacteria. Required information on the well testing application. So that's where it's at. And then see line 16 and 17, like I read earlier, the law states pre-treatment testing. This addition gives the buyers an option to have the water tested post-treatment. So if you look at, where is it at? It's on that slide. Yeah, on that slide, on line 36. And I bet you this is going to be the biggest question we hear for people that aren't taking these classes. They're going to be like, why did you guys add this line, additional arsenic, nitrates, and total coliform bacteria? The sellers already have to do that by law, so why are you putting that there? Well, our thought was, and I'd heard from some other brokers on the committee, that in their area, there's some different standards of practices where the law says they have to test, the seller has to test it pre-treatment, okay? What if the buyer wants to verify the treatment's working? So they might want to test it post-treatment, after it's gone through a UV light system or a filtration system or something like that. It could be very well just right there at the faucet. And so that is not by law required that a seller does that, but a buyer may wish to do that. And here's an opportunity to check that box and decide who's going to pay for that. Either it's a buyer's expense or seller's expense. And yes, we have fixed that. It says expense on the real form now, where it's missing on here. So that was our thought. And additionally, you could have other inspections that they're asking for. And so line 39 has always been there where it says other specify, but you could check that you might want additional arsenic, nitrates, coliform bacteria on other wells on the property that are not domestic wells. So it gives another opportunity to just have that conversation with the buyers. Here's the law, here's the seller's requirements. Would you like to do more? And have that conversation. Do you guys think that was a good addition?
Yes.
Good. Do you guys do that down there?
Yeah, we tried.
Awesome. I'm glad. So I hope you guys like that. Very good. Thank you for that feedback. All right, then go down. Oh, line 43. This line was always there. It was on a different paragraph. We just made it a standalone sentence. By itself, completed tests, inspections, or reports shall be submitted to the other party within 48 hours after receipt. So that's, they're just kind of standing out to make, maybe stand out for them to understand. But keep in mind, 48 hours after receipt, not 2 banking days, it's 48 hours, okay? It always has been, just pointing that out. Line 46, buyer right of termination within blank business days. We put 5 there as well. It used to say 3, making consistent again. And line 48, we took out the word unconditional. Now it says intent to declare termination. I really like that because in my thought process is if a buyer gets some deficiencies in their well tests, they hopefully will be more apt to negotiate through that and not just unconditionally disapprove out the gate. They can still notify the seller they're potentially going to terminate, and it just offers that opportunity to potentially negotiate a written agreement as to the method or cost of how they're going to correct those deficiencies. On line 49, we added upon delivery, buyer and sellers may negotiate. We added that. A written agreement as to the method, like I just said. And then I think, oh, line 56, we added again on that section where I searched Oregon well ID registration, making sure people could easily find the publichealth.oregon.gov to the section where you'd find information on well IDs. So again, there was a lot of changes to that. I would highly recommend if you have a 2019 form, private well addendum still, because now they're gone off the library, but I'm sure you have a transaction with a private well that you could print and really like lay it side by side with the 2020 private well addendum and really see what we did and where we moved stuff. And I think it'll make more sense, and I think it will help flow better for you, but familiarize yourself with it definitely. You don't want to be practicing this form in front of a client. Any questions